gentlemen and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, July 19th, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan, and we have quite a show for you today. Let's just get some opening spiel stuff out of the way real fast. My name's Tristan. I host the YouTube channels Tristan Won't Shut Up and Step Back. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays from 12 till 2, which you're watching right now, is with Mulder. And then Step Back Tonight, I do on Tuesday nights from 7 to 9 with just myself. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And you can go to patreon.com if you want to support my work, if you want to make more of this content happen. You can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory. Or if you have Amazon Prime, you can contribute a Twitch Prime subscription. No extra cost to you at $1 per month. You can do it for anybody who you want, really. But if you choose me, I'll be very grateful. But, you know, I'm not putting anybody under any pressure, is my thing. All right. What else is there to say? Except, let's see. Oh yeah, if you haven't seen my latest video called "The Most Important Political Issue of the 21st Century," it's about climate refugees. It is quite a video. You know, it's enjoying its moment. My next video should be on the Canadian residential school system, and is probably going to be coming out for patrons this week. It's got a nice little cameo with the serfs. It's going to be very good. So, looking forward to it. Finishing the script today. And if you want to submit questions for future streams, I'm going to put a link in the chat here to give you guys somewhere to... there you go. And so there we go. There's that. If you want to submit questions for future streams, we are pretty full on stuff for today. We got lots to get through. But yeah, is here. And yeah. Also, this channel has been blowing up recently, as somebody just mentioned in the chat. We just passed 100,000 subscribers, which is just crazy. So if this is your first time watching one of these streams, please make yourself known. Say hello. Because we have a really awesome and supportive community that would love to have new people become members of it. So sign up, join on in, and yeah, make yourself known. And so without further ado, let's try to get Mia in here. Let's see what happens. I can't. I do not hear Mia. We can see, but we cannot hear. We're getting there. Don't worry, guys. She's just learning how to rotate PDF. It'll just be a second. It's not on my end, is it, for some reason? I don't think so. Your volume is good.
Oh, hello.
There we got sound.
Sorry about that.
What happened?
I forgot that I had changed my settings to push to talk instead of voice activation.
Oh no. But you rotated PDF and we're all good now?
I have rotated PDF and we should be all good now, yeah.
Excellent.
Hi everyone.
Yes, tell everybody who you are.
I am an insect. I'm a pleb who makes YouTube videos together with you, who 100,000 subscriber YouTube professional Tristan Johnson.
You are Mia Mulder, who makes great content.
Yeah, but I'm not waiting for my YouTube award yet.
Soon.
Yeah. I'm Mia Mulder. I make YouTube videos from a lefty history perspective. I make YouTube videos about stuff that I'm doing. It's fun. Usually, sometimes it's about trans stuff. Sometimes it's about history. My next one is about geographic positioning systems.
Interesting. So it's about space.
No, it's not really. It's about Silicon Valley and how awful everything is.
Fun. You also play map games on Twitch, apparently.
I do, yes, very frequently. I do play map games on Twitch. Recently, I did play a Viking tribe who moved to Sicily, joined the Byzantine Empire, and promptly got my ass kicked by the emperor, who doesn't like me being human sacrificing Scandinavian who sacks the areas around him.
Fun. Okay. Is that in CK3?
Yes.
Yeah, it feels very CK3 like.
It's very good CK3. No, I also did that just in real life last week. That's why I wasn't here.
It was the Midsummer Festival. All Swedes go on vacation in July, so this is what you were up to.
Well, I went on vacation last week because I needed it. But I mean, typically we have like 3 months worth of vacation here, and some people take a month full of vacation, but a lot of people take up until like 2 or 3 months.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Did you see? I actually thought there is a city builder that looks like the first city builder I'm going to enjoy is coming out soon, called Dice Legacy.
Dice Legacy?
Yeah, where instead of people you have dice. And they make stuff, they reproduce. It's the first game to feature dice sex.
Dice. What?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. Dice-based survival city builder set on a mysterious ring world.
Let's go for it. And it sounds like the name of a board game.
It really does. It looks fun.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I have been, I decided that I'm going to try and, like, play, like, one level every other day, every few days for all of the games that you can just do, like, one mission at a time with. So I've been playing, like, a lot of, like, XCOM and Wildermyth and, like, all sorts of, like, Mass Effect 2. Finally.
Oh, I need to finish that. I started on Mass Effect 2 and then I stopped.
I'm gonna play Doom because I never actually finished Doom.
Which Doom?
The 2016 game.
Alright. Because when I think Doom, I think like the Doom in my head has been for ages, and it shouldn't be. Doom 3 from like 2008 or something, like the horror game one.
If anything, the only one that would come to mind other than the 2016 game is Doom 2, which I played when I was a tiny little child. Everything was good until Mia joined the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah, I had a great time, unfortunately. But I thought I had a plan for joining the Empire so that I could like become emperor, but turns out that the emperor doesn't like it when like I said this.
Yeah. The other things that have been, let's see, what kind of discourse have we had in the last week? There was the Gusano Lives Matter protests.
There's been a lot of Cuba.
A lot of people who use a lot of racial slurs in their past who, what's it called? Who seem to all be tweeting out of Langley are saying that the Cuban government is very bad because they took away their grandparents' sugar plantation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, this is one of those situations. There's two kind of unfolding geopolitical situations right now that both are like, oh, so this is what Joe Biden's CIA is going to act like. Okay. Because there was the assassination of President Moise in Haiti, which has just been this absolutely unfolding disaster as like everybody is starting to find more and more connections back to the CIA. It's just constantly all roads are leading. It's like, oh yeah, who's he assassinated by? Oh, it was by former Colombian military people. Oh, really? What company they work for? Well, they work for this Florida-based security firm that is just a series of letters. And it's like, okay.
That seems
legit.
Yeah, seems very legit.
And just like I'm trying to remember what the new thing was, but basically there was an interview with this one guy in Florida who was just talking about how these people were going to try and install him as president of Haiti, and the plan was to not kill the president of Haiti. It was just to depose him and put this new person in charge. But like, because he was assassinated, everybody like they killed him. Everybody like scattered, and people are like telling, and like they're like, oh yeah, some guy from the CIA was like, do you want to be president of Haiti? Because he had made some YouTube videos about how he wanted to be president of Haiti. He's like some like fundamentalist Christian weirdo, and it's like, okay,
yeah.
So it's like, okay, this is like not only the CIA, but it's like really bad CIA. And then also, there's all of a sudden government protests against for having not enough vaccines in the country that made its own vaccine and is exporting them.
It's because they have a syringe shortage, right?
Possibly. But it's just like, It does seem that very soon, actually less than 2 weeks after Cuba started exporting vaccines to Venezuela, which couldn't get vaccines because of economic blockades and sanctions, that all of a sudden the Cuban people are rising up, and we're getting like a total funhouse mirror effect from US-based media. It's like, okay, this is one of those times where I'm going to sound like a tank. This is one of those like periods in recent history where I'm going to sound like a complete tanky and start defending Fidel Castro and all that stuff, because like this is so full of shit in my mind.
Yeah. I feel like every few months recently there's been like some there's been like really weird protests in some like South American or Central American country that just, or Caribbean country, that just seem to be weird a little bit, and it becomes a big thing. A lot of like center right or centrist Americans go into like a big flurry about how like it's the responsibility of the US to help them on site by shipping in a bunch of trucks and soldiers with it. And then when it doesn't work, inevitably, it takes like 2 weeks, and then everyone forgets about it.
Yeah. But like, because this is like, both of these are in the Caribbean, it's like, this is the place where the US gets especially involved. Like, this is a place where like the US can more or less do whatever the fuck it wants, and the global community doesn't really do anything. Like, so Latin America is especially the Caribbean is a place where the U.S. just straight up, like they straight up occupied Haiti for like a decade because they didn't like the way they elected. They didn't like who they elected for a while. So
yeah,
it's fun. I also heard that Germany opened a new water park. It's real wild.
Wait, what?
Germany has gone the way of the lost continent of Atlantis. It is now underwater.
Oh yes. Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. It's that's fun. That's happening in Europe. Apparently, it's one of those like once every 200 years flooding storm things.
It's weird how often those are happening these days.
No, it seems to be happening far more often than 200 years. But yeah, that's happening. There's a lot of stuff has been happening since the last time we talked. I feel like summer really makes people and the globe and the planet and the environment go just hog wild, just bad.
Yeah. There's anti-trans protests going on in LA with counter-protesters being beaten up by police.
An anti-trans protest that started from a controversy at a spa that's almost definitely fake, just a complete fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun.
Yeah, life is great. Things are good. No oncoming emergencies whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm so tired.
Me too.
I'm so tired of just everything happening all the time, everywhere.
Yeah,
Can we just like have a boom again? Can we just have like a decade where things are just like nice?
Yeah, I want a roaring 20s. Not like a flooding and on fire and fun. So we had a smoke warning in Ontario because of wildfires in British Columbia, a place that is 4,000 kilometers away.
Yeah, isn't that like on the other side of the continent?
Yeah.
That seems concerning.
Oh yeah, it was intense. Now it didn't like smell like smoke, but it was just kind of hazy.
That's still bad.
Yep.
Like if a forest fire halfway across the continent is making it hazy, that's not good. That's really bad.
Oh, it's not halfway across the continent. It is the other side of the continent.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
There's also a really fun article that said now that it was worded very interestingly. It was very much like innocent person killed in officer-involved shooting type situation. But it was now the Brazilian rainforest, the Amazon rainforest is now a net exporter of carbon dioxide. And it's like, oh no, does that mean planting trees doesn't work anymore? And the answer is, turns out that the Amazon produces less oxygen when it's being burned down and turned into cow pastures.
Yeah, it turns out that that's actually like bad.
Mm-hmm.
My God, like what a summer, huh?
Yeah.
Has it always been like this? Like always? You can't always have been like we can't just start noticing these things. Like things are getting worse, surely.
I always say that it seemed that in some ways the beginning of the end was 2008. Like I don't know, the economic crash in 2008 feels like it's just snowballed more and more things that are compounding on top of each other. But if you want a more recent one, I would say 2014 with ISIS starting on the scene. That would be the year where things the news just stopped making sense.
Yeah, that tracks. Things just becoming like abjectly worse.
Mm-hmm. Someone said BC sharing their smoke is part of a new federal redistribution program. Fair, although usually when BC shares its smoke, it's rad, but that's because they make good weed. But it's a different type of situation. Ah, man. So that's our world. We're having a really good time here at the moment.
We're having a great time. Big doomer energy right now, especially for me. I've had quite the weekend too, so I'm in perfect like doomer mood, basically.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
So we need some.
Not only did an actual Black Hawk helicopter fly like literally a few meters above my ceiling like 2 nights ago. All day yesterday and today, someone's just been like banging on the walls. I'm guessing like they're drilling something or making something happen. And it's been making me lose my damn mind this weekend.
Okay, I don't know what it is about this neighborhood you live in, but it does sound like you were in a constant state of somebody doing some form of very noisy construction. Because I remember there was like drilling that drove you insane for like a year.
Yeah, that was the last place I lived at.
So it's following you.
it's following me around, and I'm becoming the Joker. I'm going to become the Joker.
The Black Hawk helicopter was probably because they didn't like your latest video.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know. I've gotten I live kind of close to a hospital, so I hear helicopters a lot. But yeah, it's annoying.
It's very annoying. Well, yeah, I feel like it's if it was just like if it was medical helicopters, a part of me would understand it. But I live close to like the Air Force base, so it is like literal Black Hawk helicopters, like out on drills or whatever, and I have no sympathy for that. They don't have to do that. They're not like carrying emergency people, or they're not like rescuing people from the forest or from the sea to take them to hospital. They're just like some guys out having some fun in the neighborhood.
Oh, I forgot. There's one
3:30 a.m. in the morning.
There is one more fancy thing going on, which is
God.
America is having a new COVID wave. They're starting to put in mask mandates again, and they're calling it the pandemic of the unvaccinated because it's like spreading and killing almost like roughshod right through all of the unvaccinated parts of the country.
Yeah,
because they still have like regions that are like 40% vaccinated and stuff like that.
Yeah, and isn't it something that's like most people like? I want to say it's something like 85% of people who get COVID are people who haven't had a vaccine, and then it's like 99.9% of the people who, like 0.9 repeating for a long time, people who die in it are people who are unvaccinated. Like, if you can get your vaccine, get your vaccine.
Yeah, don't not get a vaccine, please.
Don't. Yeah. If you can get a vaccine, you should get a vaccine.
Because this week we celebrated Canada's now has a higher proportion of the population with 2 vaccines than the United States.
Congratulations.
Yeah, 70% of Canada is now vaccinated.
Oh, I wonder what Sweden's like.
And what's it called? If we can get ourselves to 80%, then we'll do some stuff. But safe to say, going to VidCon looks very unlikely for me right now.
There's a part of me that's wondering like if they're just gonna cancel it again, because
no one I know is going. The only person who I know is going because he has kids who want to go to Disneyland.
I know that some people from Standard are going but the only ones who I know are going are people who are like very involved in sort of the like YouTube Corp. Because there's like 3 sides to YouTube, right? Like there's the fan part, which most people are part of. It's the part that people watching this are part of. There's the creator part of it that we're a part of. Like we're the people who make the videos and we're the people who do the content. And then there's that's like the second largest group. And then there's like the tiny group, which is the corporate part. And they're the people who care about like revenue per mil view during certain like advertising seasons of on YouTube. They are the people who care very much about like the minutia of the corporate side of YouTube. Of ad placements and things of that nature, and those are the only people I know who are going, because they want to network. But I don't think VidCon is in the stars unless I somehow become a featured creator, which I don't think I will be. But if I, in God's grace, do become one, I'm gonna go just for the sake of it.
If I became a featured creator, I would just conclude something very wrong happened. That they're really scraping at the bottom of the barrel for people at that point.
Well, that's why I'm thinking that I may have like a 1% chance, because again, like no one's going, and I'm hoping that they're just gonna be like, no one international is coming to VidCon. No one's coming to America because of COVID. There's one Swede who applied. We have to take her.
There's only 3 Swedish YouTubers. This is the only one that's not a Nazi, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there was some fun stuff about VidCon this year too. That's going to be weird because this was the VidCon where TikTok had put in more money than YouTube this year, so it was going to be more of like TikTok first, YouTube second VidCon.
Oh, that's fun.
So like now, so apparently, whenever we actually do end up getting like, whenever COVID is far enough behind us that we can actually start going to VidCon, apparently we're going to come back to a convention that's more about TikTok than it is about YouTube, which is going to be serenely weird.
It's going to be very weird. I also just like hate TikTok like with a passion at this point, because they've really sort of distilled the worst parts of YouTube, or the worst parts of like Vine and the worst parts of YouTube, and they've distilled it into what TikTok is, which is this highly addictive, just highly addictive content stream that is that can vary between being like outright like Nazi promoting, because sometimes it does that for some reason, because their algorithm is they have no content moderation basically, except
there's been no New York Times articles about TikTok's recommendation algorithm. Well, there has been several about YouTube.
And that's part of it, but there's also the part about it that's just like it's just a significant. I hate talking about this because I've had a hard time formulating how this works. But a significant part of TikTok is either outrage porn or softcore porn. In the sense of like that's just what that is now. It's a significant portion of TikTok is just people who say something outrageous to cause drama, and then they make 800 TikToks about it. Which is great for content. Like TikTok loves that shit. Or it's people doing sexy dances to songs, and that is it. And there's no age regulation there at all. There's no there's no sort of. There's no moderation even from the user side, basically, because you have this like For You page where you can just view whatever TikTok blasts into your eyeballs. At least when it came to Vine and when it came to YouTube, you at least had the choice of being like, I would like to watch this creator's content. Yes, please, I accept that. But on TikTok, it really much is just like, you're not going to watch 8 videos in a row about how the Anglo-Saxon race is the racially superior one. And you go like, no, not interested. No, not interested. And it just keeps going. I'm in a ranty mood today. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I strongly dislike TikTok, and yet I'm on it.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine when we were talking, because I was playing D&D last night, and they're in my group. And they said to me, like, you got recommended on my For You page the other day. And I was like, oh, no. So like I guess something I TikToked is getting some traction. I'm like, I know this is not good. I need to stop before it gets too late. Before I get anxiety about another platform.
I can't think about like if I had to make content for TikTok, I would lose my mind.
Yeah, I have already lost. Like, I already just had, over the weekend, the glorious joy of not having to care about whether my videos are successful anymore.
Mm-hmm.
All of my YouTube anxiety is just gone. I just don't care anymore. I'm going to do whatever I want now. I don't care about if a video tanks or not. Because, like, I don't know. I got what I wanted. I'm done.
You've won.
I won YouTube. It's weird. I was in a bar when it happened, but all of a sudden my phone just started showing all of the credits for YouTube. Like, I was opening the YouTube app and I saw it hit the number, and then all of a sudden, like, the screen went kind of gray. Yeah, and then just like the credits for YouTube started coming up. It was really intense. So,
that's how it should be. God.
We are half an hour in, and maybe time to take some questions.
Yeah, maybe.
So, the first question here, speaking of fascism,
No, great.
Do you have any other good sources about the alt-right similar to the alt-right playbook? So, for those who don't know, the alt-right playbook is Ian Danskin's series kind of outlining the weirdness of the alt-right, and it is a pretty good series. Ian Danskin's kind of been taking a year off of doing those kinds of videos, but it's good. Or Innuendo Studios is the name of his channel. Sorry.
Yeah.
But other things, I mean, if you want to really understand the alt-right and you want to like get into something a little bit more hardcore and less accessible, you could read Umberto Eco's essay on fascism. It's pretty famous. People seem to think it's pretty good. That's like the one that like takes all of the like writes all the aspects of fascism. I recently just read a book about fascism because I hate my mental... I take no care of my mental health. I just do videos on the darkest topics and read books on the darkest topics and don't give myself any self-care whatsoever, so it's great. But I read a book called How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them by Jason Stanley, and that's a pretty good book. That helped me understand fascism in a lot of ways that I didn't before, so... Go with that. That's a good one.
A solid recommendation.
Okay.
I don't really have one, unfortunately. I've sort of disconnected significantly when it comes to... I'm disconnected with fascism, I guess. Is that a thing normal people say?
You don't really read up a lot on it?
Not anymore. Not really.
Yeah, the How Fascism Works is a pretty good book. It's from 2018, so it's written during like the height of the Trump administration. So it does talk a lot about like the alt-right and like the sort of ways how fascism weaponizes all this kind of stuff. It's good. It's a solid book. It's a little liberal in that it tried to do in the introduction a little bit of a both sides by saying that like it's the politics of us and them, just like how communists do the us and them by demonizing the rich. And I'm like, oh, fuck you. But then he immediately dropped it and talked a lot about income inequality for the rest of the book. So I don't know. I don't know where he's going with it. But yeah, it was a good book. All right, the next question we got here is, with the withdrawal of U.S. soldiers from Afghanistan, which is set to happen next month, is there any danger of the government deciding to slow down or cease its withdrawal?
Yeah, definitely. Isn't that a thing where the what do you say? The Taliban is like gaining a lot of ground.
Yeah, like it feels like every news source is trying to like. Obviously, there are people in U.S. media who are trying to stop it. That's why there's so many articles about the Taliban are taking control again and like all this bad stuff. And then also, like, there are a lot of liberals who are complaining that this is happening, and also. They've already said that their withdrawal is like a kind of half withdrawal.
Yeah, which is a bit shady, because hasn't the U.S. military and like NATO forces in the area, they made a peace deal with the Taliban, right? And they've stuck to it.
Yes.
Like like both sides have stuck to the peace deal, but the thing that the issue is, right, that the Taliban and the Afghan government that has been like, you know, built up by NATO and Western forces, they have not. The idea why the U.S. and the Taliban made this peace deal in the hopes that it would sort of force the hand of the Taliban and the Afghan government to make a peace deal themselves. But they haven't. So that's shady.
Yeah, and
I heard that the U.S. is sort of considering just breaking its own peace deal with the Taliban because their gamble didn't pay off. So it seems that the U.S. has once again, when it comes to their dealing with the Taliban, painted themselves into a fucking corner.
Yeah, it's a sketchy, like, the thing is, first of all, Afghanistan is a country that has never really had a strong central government. That's what a lot of people like. That doesn't get out very much, but like even like before, their government was very weak. The Taliban are a political faction within Afghanistan that has been around. And the thing about Afghanistan is that, first of all, it's extraordinarily mountainous, so it's really impossible to conquer it because it's really easy to hide from any sort of military engagement. It's hard to field large operations and stuff. And at the same time,
you just go to just back off and go to like not in a cave, but like you just hide behind a rock.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that Afghanistan has one major highway that kind of goes in like a ring around the country, which is extremely susceptible to like sabotage and those kinds of things. So like it's really easy to hold a like long-term insurgency, and also just the people in general are not very loyal to the central government because they haven't really had a strong central government. So it's like all of these things together leads to it being virtually impossible to occupy. And this is why it's often called the graveyard of empires. So my guess is that the like Afghanistan doesn't have that much strategic value. It's like a great exporter of heroin, I suppose. But
oh yes, for sure. If you're taking any type of illicit opium like anywhere in the world, odds are it's coming from Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Like they produce, I think, what is it, like 98% of all of the world's opiates, illicit opiates.
Yeah, but as far as U.S. geopolitics is concerned, and this is why I think they're doing it. Like, the Taliban is not Al Qaeda. First of all, it's its own thing in Afghanistan. They were friendly to Al Qaeda at the time, and the invasion of Afghanistan was explicitly for reasons of, hey, 9/11, therefore let's go to war with Afghanistan. And that Al-Qaeda is more or less gone now. Like, a lot of the leadership that used to be in Al-Qaeda is either dead, in prison, or they left and joined ISIS and lost that war, and now they're kind of scattered to the wind. So there's no... And also, we're getting close to saying, hey, like, by, I think, October this year, if they don't withdraw, then people can start saying that the U.S. has been in Afghanistan for 20 years, which is bad. So, all that is to say, even if things get bad, and they probably will because the U.S. made a fucking mess, they will benefit more by Afghanistan will benefit more by them not being there than them being there. But yeah, I think what you said is true. That, like, they're already reneging a lot of their deals with the Taliban, and they're looking for an excuse to just, hey, okay, fine, you guys talked us into it, we'll stay around and keep doing war on you.
Yeah, like, it feels like they're, it feels a bit like they're like, trying to find an excuse. Because, again, they can't do foreign policy.
Here's a deep cut. The U.S. wants to pull out of Afghanistan like Hook wanted to shoot himself in the movie Hook. Where he was like, don't try to stop me, try to stop me.
I haven't seen Hook.
No? Oh my goodness. It's like
unfortunate. Isn't it just an awful movie?
No, it's an amazing movie. But it's like a sequel to Peter Pan, where Peter
one.
Where Robin Williams plays Peter Pan, who's grown up, and yeah.
I was thinking about the one with the more modern one.
Oh no. All right. Next up, we got one.
It does definitely feel like they're just like trying to find a shitty excuse for the shitty foreign policy.
Although they are stepping up their exit strategy, and that's why it used to be September 11th, 2021, but now it's like August 31st or something, so I don't know.
Who knows?
I can see why America, geopolitically, through their own interests, don't really have much of a need to have a permanent installation in Afghanistan anymore. The only real thing that they want is a base, because Afghanistan is right between India and China, so where a lot of geopolitics is going to be happening in the next few years. And the U.S. wants to have a base there for that reason, but yeah. And also, it's close to Iran. which is another country America has a lot of interest in fucking with. Like it's like one of the most centrally located countries that you can have, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It has a sort of like potential to be very strategically important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at various maps of Afghanistan and the various like zones of control. There are too many, and I've come to the conclusion that there are too many factions in Afghanistan for me to easily talk about.
The idea is like the war in Afghanistan started when I was 12, and I'm 32. Like, I actually will have a hard time even conceiving of a world where the U.S. is not at war with Afghanistan. America has always been at war with Eurasia. And so it'll be really weird to... Anyways. The next question we got here is...
From 2001. Like, 20 years.
Yeah.
Didn't we see a thing there that, like... I remember seeing a thing, like, a few years ago, like, when kids were turning 18, like, kids who were born after 9/11, serving in the wars, like, with their parents in the same space.
Yeah, it's been happening since 2019.
Wild.
Yeah. All right, Chicken Coop. That's the name I got, just so you know.
Good name.
Or is it Chicken Co-op, which is a great name. If anyone wants to start a like co-op chicken restaurant, Chicken Co-op is pretty good. Okay. I keep discussing social issues with my mom, who is a little lib, and she keeps mentioning things the government is doing to help, and I just point out that people still fall through the cracks, and this doesn't address the systemic issues causing the problem. She keeps saying I'm being too harsh and pessimistic, but I think I'm being realistic and point out that it won't help everyone. How can I handle this better / explain my position in a way she won't get upset?
I don't really know if there is a way. I feel like that is the way you do it, right?
Yeah.
You just like explain that like the systems that exist are good. Like I think maybe like start from there, being like the systems that exist are good. Like, you know, meet in the middle ground in that sense, but also point out that like they are not perfect. There are people who won't be helped by these systems, and that a simpler solution would be to like sort of revamp the entire thing from the ground up so that people aren't put in this situation in the first place.
Yeah. My mom, like this sounds exactly like the conversations I have with my mom, and she says the exact same things. But I also don't particularly get upset if she thinks I'm being pessimistic or harsh. We've kind of established that rapport already. So if you have an answer, I guess meeting in the middle is good. Or just go my direction, which is just keep fighting about it forever and never stop. And it just flares up randomly once in a while.
Yeah, I think it depends a bit on the individual, right? But
yeah, because also my family's French Canadian, where just yelling and arguing is just kind of just what you do. What's it called? Catholic in origin.
The Italians of North America.
I mean, I think it's a bit of a Catholic thing. That just what's it called? Families that love each other but also constantly yell at each other about everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. The next question we got here is from Matt Lipton, which is how serious is screen time addiction? Maybe I'm showing my age here, but most of the time I hear people talk about it, I just hear boomers complaining about cell phones.
Screen time addiction is a real thing, and it's really bad. And cell phones are bad for you. Hot take from me here, but cell phones are bad for you. That's a scientific, statistically proven fact.
So two ways
I
to
think
look.
it's fine to do it. I think it's fine to do it. I think it's fine. Like we live in a society where we need to look at screens all day because that's where the things are. Um, but your eyes are going to become fucked up over time. That's the thing. Because we're not meant to be we're not meant to look into tiny suns all day because that's what we're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can cut apart this problem. The first one, as you mentioned, is eye strain, which is definitely an issue. If you wear glasses, it's why it's recommended you get one of those blue tinted glasses, like the ones that are kind of in my lenses and I think might be in yours. I don't know.
I don't have that, and my eyes are going insane. You may have noticed that I'm like rubbing my eye because my eye's been twitching for like 2 weeks. It's actually driving me insane. I'm also going to become the Joker from this.
Yeah. So I actually saw an optometrist recently, and and this is a thing where like, if looking at screens for a long time causes you to blink less often, which causes your eyes to dry out, which causes like the mucus lining in your eyelids to sort of dry out, and it's not healthy. And so you're supposed to like every 2 hours of screen time look away for like at least 20 seconds to sort of reduce eye strain. But when it comes to things like there are some things that are like screen time addiction, like there is some pretty predatory development stuff that's going on in a lot of apps. We kind of just talked about it with TikTok, but it's in a lot of games and such as well that you definitely need to look out for. That's a fault of the software though, not the hardware.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that there is a lot of like in mommy blog areas, all this stuff that's trying to do a lot of histrionics about children and screen time that are based on studies that are of weak sample sizes and aren't very convincing either way. And so like there's this like really big movement for like young parents to really try to restrict the amount of screen time that children get when like it's no more dangerous for them than it is for adults. It's about watching eye strain and stuff like and keeping yourself away from addiction loops and stuff like that. But like that there's some like sort of sinister thing about screens themselves that cause it is less of a fact. Now we could talk a lot more about how cell phones are destroying civilization itself, but that's a different conversation.
That is a different conversation. That is true.
If you want to see a treatise on this, watch a independent film by the name of Inside by one Bo Burnham. Pretty good dissection of this whole situation.
There's also a documentary I think on Netflix that's talking about like social media and how like predatory it is. And again, like this is a software thing rather than like a screen thing. But I think it's pretty telling that like basically everyone who like works like high up in social media circles or works high up in like internet consumption circles are all basically saying that they're never gonna let their kids like have a Facebook account or like have them like use what's it called, like tablets to raise their kids. Like they're all just so much against it because it puts them into this sort of like manipulative addiction loop from the start, which I think is fine for a lot of people if they grow up with that sort of awareness. But if they grow up within the social context of having that loop, I think they can be dangerous. I would say that a similar thing would happen with I would say a similar thing happens with computers and televisions during the 50s, where the vast majority of people who do consume these things are probably fine, but some people who are like overly raised on these things will become addicted. That's why we end up with like individuals who spend literally all day, like to the point of like dysfunction watching TV or playing video games. Like these things exist.
Yeah. So it's good to teach to have a variety of hobbies, and not all of them should be involving screens. Is the thing.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something that like everyone should do, because we are monkeys. We are meant to move around, and we are meant to do various things. We're not meant to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day making YouTube videos like I do.
I with my ADHD, I can't sit still for 2 hours enough to get a real eye strain anyway. So I don't know. It only happens when I'm editing. But next question, we got a question here from Christos that I think is good to catch, which is, I keep hearing about this Bo Burnham dude. Who is he? He was
Bo Burnham is a philosopher from the 19th century. Who together with Karl Marx developed the theory of capital, and also discussed initial ideas from nihilism.
Yep. But for a real answer, Bo Burnham is a YouTuber turned stand-up comic who has done a bunch of Netflix specials, and as he's been doing Netflix specials instead of YouTube, has been getting progressively more existential, to the point where his most recent one that came out, I think about 2 or 3 months ago now, is essentially just a comedic depiction of his breakdown into anxiety and agoraphobia. So it's a musical. So it's one of those things that's like, if it's on Netflix, if you have Netflix, you should watch it. It's bananas. But it's like hard to explain because it's very funny but also very depressing.
Yeah, it's very depressing.
But it's also really good.
It's very good. It's very like nice if you are also having like cabin fever, and anxiety and depression, and you want to have like catharsis. I've noticed.
Yeah. So that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Okay, next we got... This is not a question, but I have to say, Tristan, the timing of your video about climate refugees was on point, since the day after you released it on YouTube, we have, at the time of writing, major river floods all over here in the Limburg province, and huge chunks of Belgium, Germany, and Luxembourg, causing deaths and a lot of people to be displaced. Well, shit. We talked about that earlier in the show. But yes, I did not know I was that on point.
Yeah, no, like the world is falling apart, especially Germany.
We don't like it when Germany falls apart. They have an attitude about this stuff.
When Germany falls apart, bad things tend to happen.
This is true. This is a bad time for it to happen right before they're about to choose a new president or chancellor or whatever.
Oh no, we're in the 20s, recovering from a plague. Germany is having issues, and they're about to choose a new chancellor.
This is fun. It's fine. When has
it's fine.
When has it ever gone wrong in the past?
Last time we tried this, yeah.
If there is an anarchist revolution, this is from our Dutch name, not Dutch person. This is from Orange Man. If there is an anarchist revolution in the U.S., will the anarchist society be able to communicate with and use NASA and other space companies' satellites and probes, or will it have to start its own space network from scratch? If I remember correctly, the GPS system is pretty much like open at this point, so you can hook into those pretty easily. I imagine that there's probably going to be some like proprietary hacking that'll need to be done, but I'm sure that is a thing that is within doable range. I met a guy in one of my meetups who his hobby was doing like programming for fictional satellites, like about trajectory and communication protocols and stuff. So we'll figure it out, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, let's see. Who do we got next? Next up is our person who doesn't have a Dutch name but is Dutch, which is Pim Koremans.
Mm-hmm.
I am back again with another public transport question. Basically, I just saw a video which argued that the main reason congestion of cars and traffic jams are such a big issue in cities is because many people live in suburbs and work in the city, moving from and back to these places by cars. Said video also stated that while good public transport can alleviate this problem a bit, it is not a miracle cure that can solve our car problems, which I agree, honestly. However, as a solution, they stated that the best way to solve this would be with the introduction of congestion and emission taxes. What are your thoughts on this? I feel like this would be putting the burden on the average user and punish low-income households who can't be impacted much more severely by this. Do you have any alternatives? So, like, the taxes thing is like, doesn't like London have something where like you have to pay money to drive your car in the downtown of London or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like larger cities have that now, like a congestion tax. Like if you have to go through, you basically have to go through a toll at certain hours of the day. And sometimes it's just open, you can just drive through, but sometimes it will be closed. You have to like pay a little tax.
I mean, if I wanted to be like the dictator of a city, some options that come to mind are like building giant parking systems at the edges of cities and having the end of public transit also be at those parking spots. And then having laws in place where essentially, unless you are a delivery truck, you cannot drive on the streets inside the city limits.
Yeah, that's the ideal.
Yeah.
But this is not workers and resources Soviet Republic, unfortunately.
No. But incentives that are typically based on paying taxes it's always going to be regressive. It's always going to affect poor people more. So
that's why I think it could be really fun to have a congestion tax, but also have it be sort of like shifted for income. So like if rich people want to drive in the center of town, they have to pay like $20,000 to get into town to do that. I think they could be fun, if nothing else. And that way we don't have to deal with rich people in town.
Yeah.
Or if they do, they can like pay several weeks worth of wages for like a nurse or something.
Yeah, because I can think that these kinds of taxes, what they would do, I'm like, who would they affect most? It would be Uber drivers and gig economy delivery people, delivery trucks, and random people going to and from work. And like the random people who are like well-paid executives, like whatever, fuck them. But the people who would really get dinged the most would be like taxi drivers and Uber drivers, which I would probably exempt from any of these kinds of things. But you can't really do it unless like I guess you could also like have like notices and signs saying, hey, the tax what's it called, the as I say, you can't means, it would not be, it'd be hard to means test anything like this with any actual physical infrastructure. But like you could rise these fines based on how many people are downtown, kind of like surge pricing, but that wouldn't fix the inequality angle. You could have a tax on people who don't live in the city from having cars or driving around downtown, which would just the idea of those like kinds of taxes is just to disincentivize people from driving around if they don't have to. But I don't know if that would work either.
I saw, maybe this was mentioned before, but didn't we? I saw an article somewhere where there's like a city somewhere is paying people to not own a car.
Ooh, that'd be good.
So like, if you don't own a car, you just get, I think it was something like 2,000 euros per year or something, or maybe it was more. Maybe it was a month-based thing. So like, as long as you don't own a car, you just get money, and that money, I guess, is supposed to be like so that you can get like subway tickets and things of that nature.
Another angle you could go with is something they do in Spain, which are called super blocks, which is that sort of like sections of city have like dense and small roads that you actually can't drive on, that are sort of like walkable things, but they're like probably like 5 block by 5 block blocks. But then around those you would have bigger roads that would be the ones that are designed for cars.
Yeah.
So that would get rid of a lot of congestion in the like street to street stuff, and it would help with a lot of like hitting pedestrians and such. But it would still allow for cars to get to wherever it is they want to go. But the thing is, super blocks are also a thing you have to like build the city around.
Yeah, like it's very like planned city vibes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good if you can do it, but a lot of cities can't.
And we could do it the Europe style, which is just all roundabouts. Just add roundabouts everywhere. Random places. Even if there's no cars, just put roundabouts in new places that you haven't thought of them before.
Just roundabouts everywhere. I know that Paris is like reducing its speed limit down to like almost basically nothing in the center of the town. So if you actually want to go anywhere, it would make a lot more sense to just drive around the town. Or to park outside of the town and then take a subway or something because it's quicker. I think that's also a way to potentially do something.
I could think of I have a solution that would solve a lot of the problems, but also be one of the stupidest answers. What you do is you
is this gonna be like the voting system proportional to your age?
A little bit. This is sort of like a nudgy program, but I think it would actually. It sounds stupid and it sounds like something that wouldn't work, but if you think about it for about like 20 minutes, you're like, oh no, it would work perfectly. Which is, you bribe Google and Apple a lot of money to just have it so their GPSs don't function when you're downtown.
Oh.
And have it so that the thing that calculates routes wherever you want to go just directs you to the closest like subway station or goes around cities when trying to get you somewhere.
This is good. That's good. So, that's great. So if you really want to use your car, you have to be such an enthusiast that you can navigate without it.
Yeah. And just
that's good shit.
Yeah, just bribe all of the companies that make like GPS devices and just
I love that though. That's great.
We
just have like GPS voids in huge cities.
Yeah. I mean, GPS can work when you're like walking, but if you're in a car, you can't it'll just not direct you. Places.
Yeah. If it can tell that you're moving too quick, it just shuts down.
Yeah. Or if you're in a car and you're trying to direct to a place, it will just it will literally just direct you to a subway station and it'll say, "All right, get on the subway now." And take it the rest of the way. I was going to say you could do it. You just need to do Google and Apple and you would get like 99% of people covered. And I was like,
yeah, cuz no one uses Garmin anymore.
Okay, boomers do. My dad still has like one of those like GPS devices that's attached to the car stick thing.
I love that.
But also my dad is 64 years old, so maybe he's not the target demographic here.
I do like this.
Won't people start using OpenStreetMap stuff? Maybe, but maybe we can pay them money to not do that too.
We just give a lot of money to we just have a fine, so like you can use it, but any company that does provide GPS in like downtown Stockholm has to pay a fine of 500 euros per user who uses it. So you can do it, but it's gonna be fucking hard.
Yep. But then you have to rely, because I imagine that there are people who would be so put off by the inconvenience of having to navigate without a GPS that they would not do it.
Oh, for sure.
That would be that'd be my take. It would be evil as hell, and nobody would like it. But there you go. Okay, so we got a Star Trek question. We haven't done Star Trek in a little while, so I feel very good about this.
I saw Jessie in the chat too, so this is good timing.
Yeah, if she's still here, she might be able to put it in here. But basically, all right, here's the question, and I think I'm curious. I'm curious about where we'll come down on this, because I feel like there's a possibility there might be a fight here. Did you like Star Trek's Maquis? To me, their initial episodes were great, showing why a movement like it would arise, but after Voyager, they started to have lost any meaning in both, and DS9, they just became space punks. So, the question, Maquis, did they do nothing wrong?
The Maquis did a lot of things wrong, I think. But I think that they were portrayed. I think they were portrayed okay. I think they were an interesting addition to the Star Trek universe. But that also meant that like within that universe, they did a lot of things that were wrong.
Yeah, so like there was a point where they were considered very sympathetic. TNG, by the end of TNG, the Maquis did literally nothing wrong.
Yes.
But once you got into Deep Space Nine and they got bored and ran out of ideas and they started turning into like supervillains, then it got dumb. And then once you got to like late Voyager, where they had a Maquis guy who like did a what's it called? Did like a Manchurian candidate on all of the Maquis members of the ship. Do you remember this? This is like season 7 of Voyager when they had officially run out of ideas, and they had it so like some Maquis member who was an expert in like implanting memories or something like that turned all of the Maquis members before the show started into Manchurian candidates, so that it was like spread via like Vulcan mind meld, because it was set up like that a murder happened on the ship, and that it was Tuvok was investigating it, but then it turns out that Tuvok was the person who was also doing the murders but didn't know about it, and eventually it like progressed to like spreading via mind melds, because let's just say like Tuvok was a mind meld whore, but he mind melded with everybody, but
A mind meld whore. The fact that you said those words in that succession is amazing to me.
Think about every Vulcan you've ever met, and think about how often, like, you know how they were always talking about how like the mind meld is like this sacred thing that like we only do on very rare occasions, but like Tuvok would do it all the time. He did not give a shit.
Yeah, Tuvok would do it like all the time. That is true.
What's the Manchurian Candidate? It was a movie where the North Koreans captured an American soldier and programmed him that when he had certain certain triggers that he was trained to basically assassinate the president or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like this was like where the Maquis had a plan to secretly have everybody just go full Maquis again if they were triggered by like a mind meld or something like that. And they had a whole episode where the entire Maquis part of the ship had their uprising, which was obviously an episode they wanted to do earlier in the show, but they kind of forgot about that storyline. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember much of anything in late season Voyager, like at all. Unfortunately, I do know that the Maquis in Voyager are weird.
Mm-hmm. So, the Maquis. So I would say Maquis by season 7 of TNG, nothing wrong. But then DS9, they kind of buffed it up a little bit because they needed to make the Maquis less. They needed to make them less sympathetic, because they started to set them up as a villain.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do a juxtaposition about how the Bajorans did things. Like, that's the right way to do terrorism. How you're doing it is the wrong way to do terrorism. Yeah, what's it called? Pre 9/11, Star Trek was very confused about how to talk about terrorism.
There's some hints like in early TNG too that like sometimes terrorism is okay actually. Which was a level of nuance that did not exist after 9/11.
Yeah, there's a lot of the way that that Star Trek in the 90s talked about political violence. It's like, oh yeah, like if you were to make Deep Space Nine in the 21st century, you could not make Kira Nerys. They would have been protested.
No, she would be. Can you imagine just the entire, like everyone who's basically not a full-on communist just yelling about how Kira would be just an Antifa,
an Antifa terrorist,
like ultra-violent leftist.
I would love to see if we like had modern Deep Space Nine, like the episode where Gul Dukat is coming to Deep Space Nine to sell his new book, and the Bajoran government says that he can't do it, and he goes on Star Trek's YouTube to talk about how his freedom of speech is being delayed.
Okay, but you do realize we need to do this now, right?
Oh God!
Like once we earn enough money from doing this YouTube business, like in the golden age where sponsorships decide to pay out like 8 times what they currently pay out, we need to start this like reboot Deep Space Nine, so that we can do those episodes. I crave this now. You said it, and now I need it. I need a modern iteration of Deep Space Nine. Like,
Sorry, I just got something even better in the chat, which is that there will be a Joe Rogan figure who is a Bolian. Joe Bolian would be the Joe Bolian experience.
The Joe Bolian podcast. I need this though. Like
Paramount, call us up. We know that you're basically greenlining every Star Trek show right now. We got this. What's it called? We could have what's it called? We could have Sirach Lofton star in it. He's probably pretty cheap. I don't think he's done anything after Deep Space Nine. I don't know if he even acts anymore. Look at him. And he's a journalist, so it'd like fit.
Can you just imagine? I know people freaked out about Deep Space Nine when it came out too, but it was also sort of like expected that Star Trek would be a bit like edgy, in that sense, and that this was during a time when TV was allowed to have like themes. It's not allowed to have that anymore. Can you imagine if they just like line for line, like as it is, if they just made Deep Space Nine today? Because I know that you would just see Ben Shapiro lose his shit about like how they're anti-capitalist in their portrayal of like capitalism generally.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Gul Dukat is a bad person, although he brought order and structure to the Bajoran people.
Being part of the Bajoran of the Cardassian Empire has clearly turned out well for the Bajorans.
Yes. Plus, we all know that the Bajorans are all Jordanians anyway. Never mind.
It's a lot of...
But, like, the idea that, like, a society that's, like, pretty religious and has a leader that is religious and is also a terrorist, like, but is portrayed as a good person, holy shit, yeah, they would never allow that to happen again.
Yeah.
And have, like, the actual nuances of that play through. Oh, man.
I wish science fiction shows today had the balls to do this, to do what Deep Space Nine did.
Yeah. Also, Joe Bolian would definitely...
do it again.
We can have the Deep Space Nine episode where Joe Bolian pushes a all rotten meat diet on his podcast.
What was the question?
It was about whether the Maquis are good. But, no. Joe Bolian, one of his episodes, he pushes an all... Because I know that Bolians eat rotten meat. That's, like, part of their thing. Because they have, like, a super acidic digestive system. Because remember, there's only one thing we know about Bolians, and it is that they have rank shits. That's literally the only thing we know about Bolians. That's the entire joke about them. And in, like, the, memory alpha type stuff, it's that they have they eat, like, they eat a lot of, like, rotten food. Like, a little bit of rotten food that their stomachs can, like, eat, like, way grosser stuff than we can. So he starts pushing rotten meat diets, and everybody on Voyager is just, or everyone on Deep Space Nine is just getting, like, raucously ill because they're, like, intentionally eating rotten meat because even though they're not Bolians.
Yeah. Like, Christ.
It's perfect. We get it. It is, just said, if there's got, like, what's it called? Bobby Paramount, if you're watching this, president of Paramount.
Mr. Paramount.
Mr. Paramount.
Please call us up. We have a show. It's just it's the same show, but every season has like 3 additional episodes in it. Otherwise it's the same script, same set, same special effects. It's all identical, but every season has 3 additional episodes that just can have Joe Bouillon.
Yeah, there is also. I do want to do some significant rewrites on Who Mourns for Morn, where he fucks a lot more, but that's a different thing. That's just my own thing. Because as we all know, Morn fucks.
Morn fucks.
His entire apartment is a hot tub. Morn fucks.
In canon.
In canon.
We're not even like making a joke here. We're just describing like in canon Star Trek lore that Morn fucks.
Yeah. They literally investigated his apartment when they thought he was dead, and all he had was a hot tub with a woman in it. That was all of his possessions.
It's all he had. It's all he needs.
Yeah. Man, that show... I every time I think about Deep Space Nine, I always think about like the politics and the drama and everything like that, and I always just forget about how the show was just stupid in the best way possible sometimes. Like how they did an entire baseball episode because the captain in the middle of a war just like had this like he met this like this ship came in that was captained by a Vulcan who really like his whole dissertation everything was like basically shit talking humans and how humans are dumb, and apparently him and Cisco really hated each other, or he really hated them from like the academy, so it was like some like college rivalry. And so he finds out that they're playing baseball and he's like, all right, I need to put together a baseball team right now in order to beat this guy.
We're in the middle of one of the worst wars this like Federation's ever faced, but I need to play baseball now.
Yes.
And that's a great episode. Like, that's a good episode.
It is probably in my top 5 best episodes, and I don't even like baseball. And then also, like, less than 10 episodes either before or after that is an episode where the entire thing is they do a casino heist in a holodeck episode because they need to finish the storyline so that the Frank Sinatra hologram that they made doesn't die. And at one point, Cisco is like, I'm not going to go there. Do you remember how bad black people were treated in the 1960s? And it's like, oh, right, yeah, I forgot. Also, that this show is based as hell on race, too. So it's like, okay.
Yeah. What a good show.
Yeah. And then Vic Fontaine, the other major episode he does, is where one of the players is literally probably one of the best depictions on television of post-traumatic stress disorder that I've seen.
Yeah. Where this child soldier has PTSD.
Well, he's not a child.
I guess
soldier.
He's not a child.
He's just short because he's a Ferengi.
Yeah.
But like, what's it called? In a time where like it wasn't normal for like seeing guys on television to cry in the 90s, like seeing like this guy break down and everything like that. Oh my god, fuck that show. I'm gonna watch it again. I literally just finished watching it less than a year ago, and I'm like, I need to watch it again. Oh, it's so good.
Such a good thing.
Okay.
The fact that they have like an overarching arc over several seasons too about like, it's literally just about like women's rights.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that they just sprinkled in the Ferengi episodes.
Yeah.
Because they could.
That there's a secret women's rights movement happening. And also there's just that the end, the king of the Ferengi ends up just being a communist himbo. Just becomes king of the Ferengi at the end.
It just becomes like a communist wife guy.
Communist wife. Is he a wife guy or is he a himbo?
Yeah, he's a little bit of both, but he's more of a himbo. You're right. You're right about that. He becomes king of the Ferengi. God, this show rules. Oh, and also I gotta say also just from like a trans perspective, they did also just have like the closest they could get to trans representation by having what's her name with the worm?
Jadzia and Ezri Dax.
Jadzia, yeah. Because people today argue about like, is that actually like trans representation or not? Like, she was on the cover of like transsexual magazine or whatever.
Yeah, by 90s standards, yes.
by 90s standards, this is like a full, like an openly out trans woman on TV. This is as good as you can get on Star Trek.
Yeah.
This is as most as the studio will allow. I'm even surprised they allowed that.
And it's actually, I think it's actually a pretty nice tribute to that the first trans Star Trek character is also a Trill. So that's pretty, I think that's cool too.
Yeah. I think that is actually like great, because because not only is it a nice tribute, but it also keeps the Trill as it keeps the Trill as being the trans allegory, which I think is nice.
Yeah. I even like that it's not only like trans because of the worm, the belly worm, but also it's just a trans person who also gets a belly worm.
Yeah, and that way they don't like avoid the issue, because I was worried that they were going to do that they were going to be like, oh, it's not actually trans, it's just a worm. Yeah. That would have sort of backpedaled a little bit, but they just like, no, this person is trans and has a worm.
It's true, and also like they do it perfectly, because they like don't like
they Star don't. Trek. I love this.
Yeah, I mean, we're just going back to our old roots, because the thing about that too is that like that character, like it's just like it's the best way to do the representation. It's like they don't like do a lot of work drawing attention to it. It's just like, yeah, this is a trans person, this is his pronouns, this is what we do. It's cool. Moving on, they're a cool character. Yeah. They do a little bit of it with the non-binary character, but like, let's be honest, Americans and most people in general probably need a little bit more education about how to deal with non-binary people than trans people at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of transness and gender, we got a question on the topic, which is, can you be a trans ally if you don't believe gender is a social construct? Like, I know better now, but about 10 years ago, my understanding of transness was that gender was like a physical thing in the brain, as like, and if you were trans, your brain was incongruent with your body. Can you be a trans ally if that's what you think being trans is?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can be like, I think a lot for the sort of like trans ally argument is that like in order to be like a trans ally is you have to I don't know, like be in support of measures that will make things better for trans people, and you can be completely misinformed as to why you think trans people exist, and still have the belief that like things should be better for trans people, and believe in the right things that can help with that. Like, the idea that gender is a social construct is something that has been really publicized in discourse recently in the last couple of years for no reason, because it's very academic. We may as well be talking about like the trans gene or like the trans brain, or like it doesn't, like none of it really matters. It all really has to go down to the fact that like, okay, do trans people exist? Yes or no? Like a lot of people can't even pass that bar, and once you can get past that bar, that's basically all you need to be like, okay, how do we make things better for trans people? That's like step 2. And like, if you can pass that, you're good, in my opinion. Like, you're fine. Like, there are more steps there that where you can like explore gender in the sense of like, is there like a cultural context to gender, and does it change over time, and what is the medical impact of this? Like, all of those things do matter, but I don't think you need to know about them just to be a trans ally.
Yeah, like we just need to get. Do you remember? There's a really old philosophy tube video about quote your dad.
Yeah.
We can just get people to the point of your dad. Like, just have to believe that people need civil rights and human rights, and we're good.
Yeah. Like the theoretical background about like the social context or the social construction of gender is all good and well, and I do feel kind of, here's a hot take, a lot of trans people, well, a lot of insecure trans people, I'm gonna be rude now, and I'm sorry, I'm in a ranty mood. A lot of insecure trans people will base a lot of their own validity on the academic framework that they believe that they need to have in order to exist. So we see this in the right wing too, like right wing trans people who will argue that like transness comes from having like diagnosed gender dysphoria, and you need to have it in order to be trans, and you need to like do the surgery. They've created this sort of whole academic framework for how to be trans and where it comes from and how it works. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. But I think the same thing can happen from people who are a bit more liberal when it comes to trans stuff. But they will do it in the sense of like, well, gender is a social construct, and so I have to. So like within the social construct that I exist within, these are the scenarios where I exist as a woman. So it's more like practical to refer to me as a woman. Therefore, I am a woman. Like those things. But the thing is, none of that matters. Like it's very nice academically, but at the end of the day, the measures that you need to support trans people have nothing to do with that. Like in 9 out of 10 cases, you could believe that gender comes from space aliens that beam gender into your brains,
as I do.
and you could exactly, and you can still support like trans people, and you can support like trans rights, and that you could do that, and you'll be misinformed as to why, but you're for lack of a better term, not wrong. You're not doing wrong, even though you're coming at it from a wrong reason. You're hitting the target, even though you tried to miss. How about that?
Yeah, it's a solid answer.
That's what I think.
Somebody did want to know if the belly worm is an ally in the context of the Trill.
Sometimes it's an ally. Sometimes it's a villain.
Yeah, sometimes it's a serial killer. Also, we also forgot. By the way, that was a great answer. I don't want to take away that. Like that was a good answer and legit.
Yes.
But also, the chat mentioned that we didn't talk about the fact that that Deep Space Nine also has many episodes starring Wallace Shawn, who is an amazing actor who is like in Princess Bride and stuff, and he plays Grand Nagus Zek and is amazing.
And he just comes on like 2 or 3 times a season and just rocks.
Yeah. And also Jeffrey Combs just plays several different characters, and they just kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see what we got next. So Mia, you've been studying how disabled people were historically treated by society for your podcast. Am I right in thinking?
Yes.
Am I right in thinking the general pattern was just ignoring them for most of history, i.e. letting them be cared for by family or die, until the Enlightenment when people decided we needed to help them, which usually manifested as torturing them into acting ways general society would consider normal?
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
There is some complexity to that.
Yes. But hugely oversimplified in like Western Europe, sort of. Mm-hmm. And then, as you say, there's a lot of complexity.
Did you ever get to see that episode by Trey the Explainer about disability and the archaeological records?
No.
You probably really find it cool because there's evidence that like pre-agricultural revolution people, like really ancient humans, had people with disabilities in their society that they like there's evidence that even if they were people who couldn't walk and stuff like that, that they were people who were taken care of and like showed signs that they were not just like abandoned by the side of the road. They were actually like loved and cared for and stuff like that. Yeah.
And like that also is like a big thing. I think a more accurate thing that I would say before they became like a sort of like the state needs to take care of these people effort. It was more left to families in that sense, rather than sort of like abandoning them to families. And that depended on the family, whereas like in some cases families would be awful, but in many cases families would just like vibe, or like by family I mean not like sort of like your dad, but like your village, your society, like your group.
Yeah, like a lot of the idea that like people with disabilities were like harshly treated or just like outright like killed in the past comes from like this this idea of nature that's based on a capitalist way of looking at society as being a competition where everybody is in like a cutthroat fight for resources, which is contrary to a lot of how humans work, because humans generally like to be helpful and generally like other people. Unless social structures make us hate each other. Like
exactly. Like yes. Because I was also about to say that like there have been societies that are shitty, but that primarily goes into like the foundational issues of those societies.
Yeah.
Like the Spartans weren't bad necessarily because each individual Spartan wasn't a bad person, but rather because Spartan society was a clusterfuck.
Yeah, I do wonder how much of like, because every time I think of Sparta, it sounds like it's a bit too hardcore to be real. Like it feels almost probably like a bit legendary, I guess. Like that they were this
Likely.
society absolutely like completely focused on warfare. And it's like it seemed like maybe it's just extreme because it's just very different from how we see things today. But I was like,
Yeah.
it does feel like it reads more like people writing legends about those people than what like actual. But then again, I'm not an archaeologist, so I don't know the answer. But yeah, they did.
From what I remember from my like history 101, my first class in uni, because my professor was like an ancient Greek historian. Um, the reason why we remember specifically Sparta and also like much of ancient Greece in the way that we do, is because a lot of the things that we know about Sparta comes from Athenian writing, like their nemesis, basically. And then also a significant time after that comes from Roman writing, as Sparta was a big tourist destination for wealthy Romans. So much as today, when people are gonna like, make shit up about the past, people did that too. Like people would like
Yeah.
say like fucked up stories about how weird the Spartans were to wealthy Romans who would then like they go to Sparta, go on vacation, come back, and tell people there about like how Sparta was, and then that's gonna like spread into a false idea into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, Sparta feels like the way that like Sparta is popularly known. It sounds both like someone trying to write about how evil they are and trying to write about how awesome they are and how we should do that too. Like, it's like both that at the same time. It's like there's evil and based at the same time, which is, but like also so that's why I need to like actually read what like an actual Spartan town, because you can't have like a society that's made up entirely of soldiers isn't doable. You need people to. I know they had slaves and stuff, but like you need people for a functioning society. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Not every man could be a fucking guy in a thong and a brass shield and a spear. They had to like have a few people who like made wheelbarrows or something.
Yeah, exactly. So and like I've heard some historians try to like simulate how that would work. And like the closest thing that I could find was someone who like came to a calculus that like if the slave population outnumbered the Sparta population by 16-1, their society could be sustainable in itself. But they don't actually. That doesn't seem. But the archaeological evidence to support that was the case doesn't really hold up. Again, they did have slaves and they were awful people, but
yeah,
it's a lot. Ancient Greece was a fucked up place, but it's also full of gray areas.
The thing about ancient Greece is I just feel like everything that's commonly known about ancient Greece feels like legends and not like history.
Yeah.
And then there was that other thing about how the Spartans might only be revered for being great warriors just because they had steel that wasn't shit, and that's about it. And it's like every like society that like had
fighting with soft metal, everything's breaking all the time. The Spartans come along with a stick that doesn't break.
Yeah,
These great warriors.
It's like when you find out that like samurai swords weren't actually that good. It's just that they had to learn all of these very labor-intensive sword making techniques because the steel was just complete shit, and they had to learn how to like. And so like even like a 1,000 folded artisan katana would like fall apart to like some shitty stainless steel thing made in Damascus, just because Damascus had good steel and they had shit. Anyways, the next question we got here is. Okay, interesting. I don't name her because I know you two hate drama, but there's a nominally left-wing trans Twitch streamer who has been coming out with some yikes takes recently, i.e., why can't lefties say kink in front of children is bad? And some people have accused her of trying to be the new Destiny. Do you think it's even possible for a trans woman to occupy the niche Destiny does? Wouldn't they be cultivating an audience who will destroy them the moment they step out of line?
I know who this is, and I'm not going to name their name either. Again, drama is bad. I am going for the sake. I can tell, like, my mood today is very ranty and very, like, rude. So for the purpose of not being, like, mean, I'm going to recuse myself from most of this answer.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Because if I start answering, I know I'm gonna go off.
The only thing I can say to this is there's a lot of times where people who are marginalized by a group try to appeal to them in order to not be like other girls. And as I said, I think you just pointed out the answer, which is that they do so because, it's like when you think about like Dinesh D'Souza trying to suck up to the far right, or when you see like another trans creator that is much less in the controversial space of Blair White, who's like hanging out with transphobes and racists trying to appeal in their space, and it's like, yeah, there are Tiffany Tumbleses out there, and the thing is, yeah, the second they seem to think that they can ride it forever, that they're liked a lot more than they are, but like, yeah, the second they get out of line, they will be eaten alive by their own audience that basically hates them. It's a very weird phenomenon, but it does seem to always exist in every time like the far right starts to get big. And I don't know what it's about. I feel like someone should do a study about like marginalized people who the very few. See, it's never like a ton of people. It's always like a very few amount of people who gravitate towards groups that are very hostile to their existence.
I think here's an opinion. I think that a significant portion of it has to do with the fact that when you are marginalized, it also gives you a sense, and I felt this myself too, it gives you a sense of rarity, and then when you encounter a niche that you resonate with like fairly well, that you like, but there aren't that many people like you in that niche, you start feeling a sense of like, oh, I can appeal to this niche, I can insert myself here, and I can make the niche, like, I can be the person who makes this like cultural sphere more like more trans friendly, for example, in this case. The problem, this is different from a sort of like assimilation tactic of LGBT rights, in the sense of like you're just assimilating yourself, which is good because you're not forcing anyone else into it, but you're also doing it in the sense of like a person starts treating themselves as becoming a bit more of an arbiter of what because they become a representative of their own of the community that they sort of represent, unwillingly within the niche because they are rare. And that can sometimes lead to people becoming a bit arrogant. That can sometimes lead to people becoming a bit like hot-headed, because they think that because they are the representative, they are the arbiter. They are, I speak for the trees, in that sense. But the thing is, it doesn't really work. I don't think I've ever seen it work. Even in the case of Blair White, like as you mentioned, who's maybe the best at this, like, the second she talks to like a transphobe who is like who is so ideologically coherent that she won't budge even for the sake of like winning the culture war, because like Ben Shapiro, for example, like will be nice to Blair White because he knows that if he does that, he'll get more supporters and like win the culture war. But it's not ideologically consistent when he does it, because he doesn't believe that trans people exist. But every time Blair White talks to someone who is ideologically consistent, she's just shat out for it. She's completely just abused by the people who are transphobic in that sense. despite like years of trying to integrate herself in those spaces and being one of the good ones. But yeah, I think something you said before, like not like other girls, hits very hard. I've had I also know the person that we're talking about. Um, um,
See, I don't follow
I know
a lot of this stuff, so I don't know what's going on. But
yeah, sorry. I know the specific person in the question we're talking about, and like most of my interactions with this person has been in pretty bad faith. So I'm not gonna. Yeah.
bit too close. That makes sense. Okay.
Some people are asking about like the opinion itself.
Oh, that wasn't part of the debate, and I know that's a debate you're very tired of having, so I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah.
Like about the kink at Pride thing, like yeah,
Yeah. That was an example of discourse, not the question.
Yeah.
Come on, kink at Pride discourse has been done to death a month ago.
Yeah. It's July now. There's no gay people anymore. It's done. We finished.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Sweden. Pride hasn't happened here yet. I have to wait another month. It's probably not going to happen due to COVID.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
All right. The next question we got here is, Rojava and various left-wing movements in South America. Do you think the end of capitalism will start in the global South? I mean, Mao Zedong would say that there's nowhere else it could start because the West is like the kind of like the global bourgeoisie, and that we live fat and happy off of their resources. Which, like, you know, all of the rich countries are the ones that did all the colonizing, so it makes sense. But yeah, if there's going to be a successful insurgent left-wing movement, starting in the global South would be probably a place that I would think. So yeah.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Okay, this is fun. Would either of you two try to publicly renounce your leftism if the country you lived in was about to be taken over by a fascist dictator? Mia might not have to. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? You glitched out a little bit from me.
Sorry. Yeah. Would either of us publicly renounce our leftism if the country we lived in was about to be taken over by a fascist dictator?
Sorry, can you just copy paste that to me because I can't.
Oh no, am I roboting really hardcore?
Yeah, for me. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, okay. Do you want to answer first?
My guess is that in such a situation that there's enough of a public record of my statements, and I would probably try to get out of there, if anything. If Canada was taken over by a fascist dictator, I'd probably try to leave Canada in some capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably do that too. Thankfully, I'm a Dutch citizen, so I'd probably just move to the Netherlands. If a fascist dictator comes to power here, if I'm able to leave in time, I guess. If a dictator takes power, I feel like that would happen swiftly. But if the Swedish Democrats get voted in, then I'm probably gonna move. So.
Mm-hmm. We can all hang out in the Netherlands. It'll be fun. Hey.
Yeah. Like I'll come back if fascism goes away.
I don't know beans about politics. Just want T-chat.
Alex Sandy, thank you for the 8 months of subscriptions. Good evening. I don't know beans about politics. Just want to chat. Aw.
Wholesome.
Very wholesome. All right. Suppose there was a superhero going around the world using sometimes deadly force to get us to stop doing climate change. Would you be okay with that? Rick and Morty just did a Captain Planet parody where that ended with Captain Planet analog using her powers to do stuff like firebombing mining operations. The implied question being, would you be willing to stop climate change at this cost? And I'm thinking at this point, Maybe.
Maybe.
And I would argue that there are ways to fight that you could use superhero powers to fight climate change that don't involve killing, like, workers.
Yeah, I feel like if you have, that's probably the biggest like inconsistency that I saw in that episode also. Like yeah, if you have superpowers, you can just like use them.
Like if you eye laser the entire board of directors for Exxon, sure, yeah,
yeah, that's one thing.
Not shedding a tear there, but sealing up all of the undersea oil rigs and blowing up those or something like that. That's different. You don't need to kill people for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could just steal all the coal.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to. Just put it on the moon.
I'm going to take all the fossil fuels and put them on the moon until humans can learn their lesson.
They can have it back once they learn.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that is called the Leto the Second approach to getting people to fix their problems, is taking away their key technologies and having them figure something else out.
Yeah, we need to put humanity on the golden path. They'll figure it out.
Just take away all the fossil fuels, and then they have to figure out how to have a society good enough to go to the moon to get it all back. And they have to figure out how to do that without fossil fuels. And by the time they do it, they won't need it anymore. There you go.
Exactly.
Leto the Second was right.
Leto the Second is an environmentalist.
Yep. I mean, at least in his society, spice is a renewable resource. It's just like worm poop, but
That's true.
If we could get one of those sandworms, that'd be good. So that we can just get so high that we can spend. Have you ever gotten so high that you could bend space and time?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever done?
I definitely have, Tristan, and you know this.
Have you ever gotten so high that you turned into a bat creature and was able to take 2 points in space and connect them?
Again.
Yes.
You've seen my DMs to you, Tristan.
Yes.
You know this.
Those are fun. Those are fun times. Okay. All right.
It's summer. I'm allowed.
It's legal in the summertime.
If the Swedish government is seeing this, I am referring to alcohol.
Yeah, it's Roblox,
which is legal in Roblox, in Minecraft.
Should we try to think of the people and culture in place? Okay, let's try to see if I can. This sentence. Should we try to think of the people and culture in place as what we represented rather than the state and government? The other day I saw a leftist say they, quote, hate America, and I thought he means he hate, I know some random geek there, they, them, hates the U.S. government and state. Why does a barely democratically legitimate U.S. state, government and state get to be what people think when they hear America rather than the people and culture?
I think you need to DM that thing.
It's not a very cogent sentence. Basically it's trying to say when that we associate people with their governments, and why do we do that? And shouldn't we stop doing that?
We should stop doing that. That's very true. Didn't Abby Thorne, let me make a video about that ages ago? I think of what video was that? And Chernobyl and personal responsibility. She touched on some things that I think touch on the question here too. That when we associate, we associate individual action with government action, national with government, because that's we want to see individuals that are outside of us and also ourselves as belonging to something greater. if that makes sense. And I think that plays into that. I need to rewatch the thing to fully grasp.
How would the worm answer this? The worm is love. The worm is life. But I think
there's a lot of worms. There's a lot of worms in this stream.
It's
by the
true.
Way.
This is the worm
stream. Two different scientific worms. Science fiction.
So I would say, so the way that I would look at it is that, I mean, as an anarchist, I would say that we've set up this Westphalian system where we see, like, we are trained from birth to see the world as a collection of countries, and that one of the most important identity groups you belong to is whatever state you are a citizen of. And that runs deep. And also, I could imagine somebody being frustrated with Americans because of how there's so much tacit support and lack of, like, you know, energy to deal with important issues. Like, I can understand some of that frustration. I can get frustrated with even the American people because, like, all you need to do is for a politician to do something superficial that does nothing, and a lot of people just kind of are like, all right, fine, good enough for me. And that's frustrating as hell. So, yeah. I don't like... the Treaty of Westphalia was a mistake. Agriculture was a mistake. Return to monkey. And there we go.
Yeah.
Like, I always think about this when I see, like... Because, like, there's a lot of crossover with the people who are really into maps in my audience. And I always find it very funny when people try to draw a map of a region before either colonization or before like maybe like the 13th or 14th century, where it's like no maps make any sense, and things like exclusive ownership of land was not like a thing yet. And that always kind of confuses me. And it's because we are so... Like, the idea that states are, like, the primary organizing unit of humanity is so ingrained into us that we kind of can't break out of it. To the point where people obsess with maps that are like, well, this is a country. And it's like, no, there was no country that is this. And then you end up with weird world maps where you have, like... You take some monarch's kingdom and call it a state when there really wasn't much that you could really consider a government at that point. And then also, then like when you like see like kind of similar maps in like the Americas, they just take people who speak a similar language group and put them all under one thing, and it's like, what?
I know. The equivalent would just be to have every like half of Europe in just be like Germanic language zone.
Yeah.
This is the nation of Germania. Just like, come on.
And like a lot of times, like you would see like the Middle East, like a lot of the Middle East problems come from the fact that we impose nation states on a region where there are multiple different like national, religious, tribal, and ethnic and linguistic like identities kind of layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
And there's no way to really cut it up in a way that you know, states have to be monopolistic ownership of different plots of land don't make any sense. So, yeah. Countries are bad. Bread book, anarchism.
Map go change.
Map go change. Cancel the Treaty of Westphalia.
Cancel the Treaty of Westphalia. Hang on.
Let's
undo the Treaty of Westphalia.
Yeah, we'll just get the 30 Years' War going again. It's fine.
It's fine.
I
don't actually know what happened. I know Sweden either got or lost a bunch of land. I don't fully remember which one. There's too many wars in this part of European history.
Mm-hmm. And this is why all Paradox games don't work. In fact, the biggest one that shows, and one of the things that shows why like the way that you think about borders and like Paradox has like forced you to think in borders doesn't work, is that they have no way to model the 100 Years' War in any way because they don't. Because the thing is, the 100 Years' War started because the King of England was also the Duke of Andalus.
Right?
No, it's in the south. It's like not Andalus. I'm sorry. Like I'm trying to think. Southern France.
Alcyon?
Yeah, something like that. And so the king was a vassal of another king, but was also a king on the same level of title in a different country. And like, if you think like states, if you think that these are like actual nation states, which they weren't, that it breaks every way that you think. And so that's why Paradox can't do it. They can't do... Yeah. This is why Paradox can't actually even come close. Even the best CK3 thing cannot come close to simulating the absolute chaos that was Europe in this period.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though, that I'm hopeful for. Have you seen, like, and now I'm going on a complete rant on Paradox games very quickly, I promise. In the Victoria 3 thing, they're changing how, like, nations work. So now they're gonna have, like there's just not gonna be, like, empty space everywhere. People are gonna live everywhere, basically. But because it's in the Victorian era, like, there are borders now, but only in some parts of the world. So countries can be unrecognized, and I think I'm like, because I lost track of my entire thing here. But the way that they're dealing with maps, like in future games, are getting better, I think. And like recent updates to like Europa Universalis also, for example, they've revamped like how North American and like how like Native American borders also worked, where there aren't really borders, but there's like a general area where the tribe hangs out.
Yeah.
And like it migrates around. Like those things have been implemented, so they are getting better. And I'm hopeful for Victoria 3 to maybe be somewhat good when it comes to map code change.
Yep. I don't know if you saw this, it might have gone under the radar, but I sent you my pitch for a total conversion mod for Victoria 3, in which you add a luxury good by the name of Funko Pops. That use an absurd amount of resources, and they don't do anything, but if you stop importing them, once you get them and you stop importing them, everybody gets furious with the government, no matter what.
And I like that.
Just on a long enough time scale, in order to keep society from completely collapsing, every state must either put complete blockades on the importation of Funko Pops, or they must convert their entire economy to Funko Pop production. So, like, all the places where you can get, like, oil for plastic, everyone's just, like, tearing each other apart to just get whatever scraps of resources possible so that they can fund their endless war. All of these roads coming towards so that all the Funko Pops can come. It'll be... Trust me. Funko Pops will be the luxury commodity of the... Also with...
I feel like Funko Pops are going to become the currency of the post-apocalypse.
Yup.
Like, people are talking about caps from Fallout, but, like, it's going to be Funko Pops.
Mm-hmm. The Funko Pop mod would work very well. The other thing too is with the mods of with Victoria's mods, they could probably do a zombie apocalypse mod pretty well too.
There is a zombie apocalypse mod for Victoria 2.
Sweet.
So they can definitely, so it's definitely going to happen for Victoria 3 somehow. Because it's going to be great to see like Victorian Imperial Germany fight against the zombie hordes. I'd love to see that.
Sorry, yeah, that sounds like the best novel ever written.
Yes,
like World War One. Like it's like that alternate history novel where the aliens invade during World War II, but it's a zombie apocalypse during World War One. I think there's actually
the Spanish flu causes zombieism.
Yes. Oh man.
There we have it.
There you go. Isn't there even I think there's even a Axis and Allies zombie board game. Like it's Axis and Allies and Zombies or something like that.
Love it. That's great. God, I can't wait.
But like, can you imagine like Diesel Punk with zombies? Like. Come on.
Isn't that the game, like, they are billions?
Oh, maybe.
They do that.
I gotta check out that.
They have some like diesel slash steampunk vibe when it comes to that.
Don't give Turtle Dove ideas. Fuck Turtle Dove. I want to write this. I want to write World War One temporarily interrupted by zombies. Because if I remember correctly, the Spanish flu, the Spanish flu evolved, like it mutated, like the regular flu mutated into Spanish flu on the front. So like the first zombies would actually be like on the Belgian, in like the Belgian trenches and stuff.
Like on Flanders fields, yeah.
On Flanders fields, the zombies grow. Just zombies covered in poppies. Just.
I do like the idea that they stopped the First World War temporarily and keep going once they solved it.
Be so perfect.
God.
Be a good metaphor for World War One too, because it was a human meat grinder. Or just, the smallness of humanity, where even our biggest war would be nothing in the face of just disease.
Mm-hmm.
The untold story of World War One that nobody. All right. Anyways, it's 2:00. It is a great way to end this show. Is talking about zombies in World War One. Okay. So first of all, before we go though, we need you to tell everybody where they can consume your content, because we need to get
you.
Now
I need to get a link tree.
Yeah.
Now that you what?
Now that I'm getting my Bhutan, I'm gonna get my new goal is to get you your Bhutan. So we need to get you. Tell everybody to consume your content.
Everyone should consume my content. I also would like. I need my plaque. So that I can brag and tell my parents that I've amounted to something. I've been Mia Mulder. And you can watch my videos on miamulder.com, and it'll take you to my YouTube channel, where you can leave comments and watch my videos. They're very good. I make one video every month, and that's enough for me, and that's what I do. But I also do a podcast, as Vince Whitaker in the chat is already saying, along with my friend, called Leashfest, which is a medical history podcast. So if you're into like the history talk and medical history, but that is like I don't know, like more academic than the Star Wars talk that we're having here, you can go listen to that. We just recorded an episode not too long ago about space medicine. I think I mentioned that 2 weeks ago as well. We're going to record another episode soon about Chernobyl. So that's going to be fun.
Be a good one. I had a friend who had a heart condition because his dad was at Chernobyl.
Ooh, damn! That's gonna be. Yeah, there's a lot of like long-term effects from Chernobyl. That's going to be interesting.
Like his mom was pregnant with him at Chernobyl, or when Chernobyl happened, but was nowhere close. They were just in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's all you need. But yeah, so that's going to happen fairly soon, I think. That's why I've been like writing about like our BK reactors and trying to concisely explain Chernobyl in a simple way how Chernobyl exploded, which is harder than you think. But yeah, that's going to be a fun episode.
Just rewatching that scene with what's it called, the sliding things from that scene. Did you see like the Chernobyl show where the guy's like at the court and he's like taking out the rods or whatever, the blockers and stuff?
No,
isn't it like the last episode of the Chernobyl miniseries where he's like trying to show the Politburo how the meltdown happened?
Yeah. Just like, yeah, it's very complicated, and I'm trying to like simply say how it happened. But that's very fun. I also stream video games on twitch.tv/miamulder. I stream map games. Map does go change very often. And you can find my tweets on twitter.com/potatopolitics, where I tweet incessantly and constantly forever.
Excellent. We're going to raid Left Flank Vets.
Ooh.
So we're going to go do that. But everybody, I'll be back tomorrow night. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll see you on the other side.